Former North Dakota governor and former GOP presidential candidate Doug Burgum is certainly backing Donald Trump now. We know about that endorsement, and the former president hints that the governor maybe could play an important role, as he put it, in a second Trump administration if he wins, of course. Now, let's get to the governor and talk about this some more. Here he is, North Dakota's governor, Doug Burgum. So welcome, sir. Thank you. And I know you've done a lot of interviews since you endorsed the former president, and most of the time you're they play an old clip of you saying that you didn't want to do business with him, or that kind of thing, and say, well, how could you endorse him when that was the case? In politics, things like that happen all the time, right? You run against someone, you say something about him, then you endorse him. I do want to specifically ask you, though, about how you can endorse Donald Trump. What was behind it? Can you get to the why on it? Because I think there's a lot of viewers we have, especially middle-of-the-road viewers, who want to know why someone like you would support Donald Trump. How did you work through January 6th, for example? How did you work through the election where you didn't accept the results and wanted to overturn the election? What was your process there, and what did you prioritize?
Well, Connell, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. And I'd say the answer to your question relates to what you started at the top of the hour. You went through the Middle East, you went through Asia, you went through Eastern Europe, and all the things in the world right now that are on fire. And when we ran for president, when we announced on June 7th, we said there was 3 topics that we're going to talk about, which was the economy, energy, and national security. That Joe Biden did not understand those 3 things were all completely intertwined and interrelated, and that he was going 180 degrees in the wrong direction. So in terms of endorsement, I had an opportunity as a governor. I came from the private sector. I was elected into office for the very first time in my life the same day President Trump was in 2016.
Right.
And I backed him in 2016. I backed him in 2020. When I take a look at right now where the country's going and Joe Biden with these dangerous policies, and I look at what it was like serving as a governor under President Trump when the nation was safe and prosperous, and then I look at the disaster we've had under Joe Biden, whether it's energy policy, his economic policies.
No, I get that. I think the timing, though, is what I'm interested in, because your previous endorsements obviously came before the last election, came before the 2020 election, obviously came before January 6th. So some people look at that and they say, I cannot support him no matter what. But my question, how did you work through that? I would think you're not okay with the way he handled some of those things, or maybe not. But how did you work through that and still come to the endorsement?
Well, it's very easy. Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. This primary is going to be over in a week, no matter how much people try to generate some idea that there's competition that still remains. And we as a nation have a choice between President Trump and Joe Biden. And we've got one president and candidate, President Trump, who's got the strength and the experience,
right,
who make the nation more prosperous and more safe.
So you wanted to back the winner, it sounds like, and that gets to a point that Trump himself, former President Trump, made when he was speaking about your support. I want to play that, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Here's the former president.
He's one of the best governors in our country, and I hope that I'm going to be able to call on him to be a piece of the administration, a very important piece of the administration.
So a very important piece of his administration, says President Trump. Now, the Bismarck Tribune, your home state, has a headline and a quote from an editorial that they say, need to be honest with the voters in North Dakota, that Burgum may court a controversy if he announces a 3rd run for governor and doesn't address the possibility of taking a position in a potential Trump administration, this quote-unquote very important position that Mr. Trump alluded to. So how would you address that?
Well, again, the focus here today is not on whether I'm running again or not running again. That's a decision that I'm going to be making in the near term here.
You haven't decided yet?
No, I haven't decided yet. And when I announce, I'll let people know, but they're not related. There's been no discussion about roles in the administration. There's been no promises made. This is just a choice where we've got a choice between President Trump and Joe Biden. And for a state like ours, an energy state, an agriculture state, we've seen how we thrived under President Trump. We've seen how we've suffered under a mountain of red tape under Joe Biden. It's the easiest decision in the world on those 2 choices. And so that, I think, is important. And we should, as a Republican Party, need to unite, get behind one candidate. The media has been talking about we need to narrow the field for 6 months. Well, let's narrow it down to one candidate, the one candidate who's leading in all 50 states, the candidate who in Iowa won in every demographic. President Trump won in 98 of 98 counties. He won women. He won college educated. He won rural. He won urban. This race is over, and now we have to talk about
what makes him better,
is
though, in your mind than Nikki Haley? Is it just that he's a head governor, or is it something specific about Trump that's better than Haley, if that's the binary choice? I get it on the Biden side, you've said that, but what about Trump versus Haley, presuming that she's his biggest challenger right now, especially in New Hampshire?
Well, we have a choice between a proven leader who's been proven that he has got the strength and the experience to lead the country. That's a pretty simple choice.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.